Well, good morning. Let's get started on this Monday morning. Let's hear a little bit of Primitives. I'm kind of in a primitive mood. Here's some picking and grinning by the Primitives, laying up treasures. Hope you enjoy it this morning.
We lay up our treasures on our sinking sand. Laying up treasures, these things made by man, where thieves can break through, or they rust and decay. But treasures in heaven will not pass away. Treasures in heaven, riches untold. Treasures more precious than silver or gold. Treasures in heaven, money can't buy. Laid up in God's storehouse in heaven on high. We're laying up treasures every time we forget. When we teach our children for Jesus to live, we're laying up treasures when we help bear the load of a brother.
Good morning, Miss Lee. I hope you're doing good.
We're laying up treasures when God opens doors. We send missionaries to far distant shores. Someone without Jesus.
Let's see, there's Leah, there's Reuben. Hey, Reuben. There's Michael. Good to see you guys this morning. Hope everybody's doing good.
Find living water.
I'm working. I'm addressing envelopes for books to go out today.
Treasures in heaven.
Treasures in heaven,
Riches unlaid.
all up riches untold,
Treasures more precious than silver.
or gold.
Treasures in heaven.
Treasures in heaven,
Money can't buy.
there's money can't buy.
Laid up in God's storehouse in heaven.
Been a while since I've seen you, Reuben. Good to see you on here this morning.
Laid up in God's storehouse in heaven on high.
Heaven on high. Hey, Miss Amber, good to see you. I'm in a music mood. Let's play another. Didn't he shine? Well, I don't want the commercials. I hate them commercials. Got commercials on everything now. This Didn't he shine? That's what we're going to play as soon as the commercial gets off. Man, I can't stand these commercials. They drive me cuckoo. So, hope you're doing good on this Monday. Hope you had a good weekend. We had a great weekend, man. The Lord bless us. Had a good day at church yesterday. I got to go all day to church yesterday morning, last night. I was able to make it all day, and the Lord helped me. We had a wonderful service. Preacher had me testify last night and tell about all God's doing in the ministry and what we've been through to get to this place, through this surgery thing. So let's listen to a little bit more music, and then I'll tell you some more things that's going on. Didn't he shine by the Primitives? Didn't he shine? If I can get the volume down. There we go.
When he came to a lowly manger, didn't he shine?
Didn't he
When
shine?
he came to a lowly manger, didn't he shine? There was just one reason why he came to earth to die. Oh, this precious rose of Sharon, didn't he shine? When Jesus cried, Father, forgive them, didn't he shine?
I love him, boy, I love him.
Forgive them, didn't he
They're my
shine?
favorites.
Early on that Sunday morning, a new world was dawning. When he rose up from the grave, didn't he shine?
Didn't he shine? Didn't he shine?
When my soul was out in darkness,
Didn't he shine?
Oh, but when I cried for mercy,
I love it. Hey, Miss Darlene, good to see you.
when he saved me, hallelujah.
Didn't he shine? I'm working while I'm listening. Hot dad dressing envelopes. I got 5 books to go out this morning. I'll finish them later. I love it. Didn't he shine?
Resurrection morning,
Didn't he shine? He's gonna shine.
on that resurrection morning, he's gonna shine. When he comes in clouds of glory, we'll be glad we heard the story. On that resurrection
Resurrection morning, he's gonna shine. He's gonna.
crowning king,
There's the deer in the yard eating the grass. Eat.
when they crown him Lord of Lords,
You surrender full-time minister, praying about getting a license to preach. Going to Bible college this fall.
when at last
Online courses with Slidell Baptist Seminary.
Lord and King.
That's good. That's a good school. Our Bible college starts here in just a few months. You may want to consider ours too. They're a lot cheaper. Ours is cheap.
My soul was out in darkness,
Quality teaching, but inexpensive.
when I cried for mercy,
First classes will be on in the summer.
arms around me, when he saved me, hallelujah.
Hey, Brother Manny, good to see you.
Oh, but when I cried for mercy,
Monday evening in the Philippines.
arms around me, when he saved me, hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Didn't he shine?
Didn't he shine?
Well, that's my buddies, the Riddles from down there, the Primitive Quartet down in Candler, North Carolina. Traveled the country for years. I met them when they first started, I guess 40-some years ago, almost 50 now, probably over 50 years ago. They were singing in Lenore. Our group was singing with them. They were just getting started, just hadn't been in maybe a year or two. And the Riddles, I've known Brother Larry and Mike and Reagan, and then Norman, of course, he's in heaven. And then, of course, the other guys that have been with them through the years, Brother Fox, and that's one of the son-in-laws. And then Jeff Talbert has his own group going. And so good men love God. They've traveled all over the country singing for Jesus. Hey, Brother Gary. And I love them. They're a blessing. I still love to hear them. They're not traveling anymore. And you love the baseballs behind me, Brother Reuben. I'll sell them every one to you, buddy. I've got them all for sale. I'm fixing to get rid of a bunch of stuff. Let's see who's up there. I got Hank Aaron. I got Willie Mays. I got Mickey Mantle up there on that one big frame there. That's a Mickey Mantle signature. And then I got a Hank Aaron signature when he hit his 715 home run. It's got a picture on the back of the lady that was there, the editor of the paper or the reporter, and took a picture of him and her as he signed that, and I got that. And I got Don Drysdale. I got Aaron Judge. I got a bunch of good baseballs all signed, and so I'd get rid of all of them. Somebody made me an offer, but I've got, I think 19. I gave my son a couple. He wanted a couple of good ones, and I gave them to him. And one of them was, I'll think of it in a minute. Ken Griffey Jr. I had a Ken Griffey ball. I had a good Ken Griffey ball, and he wanted it, so I gave it to him. But he gave me the Mickey Mantle frame. Then I bought the Hank Aaron somewhere online. Some guy knew. We did some swapping. So anyway, well, good Monday morning. Hope you're doing well. We had a great Sunday yesterday. We had a group from West Coast Bible College there last night singing. And the name, mine's going to be, Preacher's Podcast is going to be Online Bible Institute. My websites are being built now. I just hired a team last week, a tech team that's doing all the building. And I'm going to start recording the classes here in just a couple weeks. We're going to have, by the fall, we're going to have Bible Doctrine 1, 2, and 3, Hermeneutics 1 and 2, and then Evangelism. There'll be 6 classes online by the first of the fall. And so I'm getting ready to start recording those here in just a little while. We'll have all kinds of classes. There'll be 40, 50 different courses offered to start with, and I'll keep adding to it. But I'll be doing all the teaching. I may have one other guy that may do a couple of classes, but I'm going to do all the teaching. Every class is a 3-hour credit. The school's not going to be accredited yet. We're not trying to get accredited. I'm not trying to give diplomas out so guys can go and get a big job. I'm just trying to teach guys the Bible. I'm going to be teaching a lot of guys in other countries, a lot of young men that can't go to school. We're going to be teaching a lot of nationals, Malawi, Kenya, Uganda, Pakistan, India, a lot of guys that can't afford a big tuition. Ours is going to be somewhere in the probably $45 range, for a $40 to $50 range for a course. And usually the courses now, they usually charge $100 an hour. So a 3-hour our course is like $300 to $500 for a course, but ours will be $30 to $50 for a 3-hour credit, and we'll get it started up. I'm going to start recording now and have them ready for the fall, and I'll keep recording. We'll keep adding them. But the guys now, I hired a big tech team that's going to be doing all my stuff. The website, we're going to have a top 100 messages from the past, preaching from the past. My podcast is going to go to all the major social platforms. Our Bible Institute online, it's called OBI, Online Bible Institute Preachers Podcast. Everything's under the Preachers Podcast. And then our books, or of course, our books are on Amazon. That all run through our website as well to hook you to Amazon. And all our books will be on audio and they'll be on ebook. And we've got a lot of other stuff too that's just now, we ain't even talking about yet. All this is going to be built. And so I hired the team last week. We had a conference call on Wednesday, got everything worked out. Hey, Dave and Shauna, good to see you. Hey, Brother Greg. And hey, Brother John, good to see you. And so we got a big ministry stepping out by faith, but God's provided everything so far, provided the money to get the team hired. And so they're going to go to work probably sometime this week. They're going to start building the site. I've already got my website address, drdavidharrison.org. That's going to be on my website, drdavidharrison.org. Everything will be through there. I'll still be doing the Facebook Live every morning. I'm doing now from 9 till 10. But all those are going to be turned into professional podcasts on all the other Spotify's and iHeart. And they'll have an intro and an exit and have all the advertisements about our books and our website and then our Bible Institute. And so I'm looking forward to, within the next 3 years, to having hundreds of young men and women around the world that will be taking our classes. It's going to be the most inexpensive quality school that you can take an education. Everything in 50 years of ministry, all that's going to come through this Bible college. We're going to teach. I've taught for 9 years before, and I'm going to take and put all that online. That'll be here after I'm in heaven, Lord willing. And so we're going to keep on training young men and women to serve God, to teach classes, to be to do evangelism, to work with pastors in churches, building local churches, church planners, missionaries, pastors, evangelists, just workers, and then even people in the country here and other countries that just want to learn more about the Bible. We'll have a lot of books of the Bible we'll be doing probably a couple Revelation, probably two courses on Revelations. We'll probably do one on Genesis because it's a big book and everybody has questions about creation. Hail Agenda. And so we're going to be doing all of that. That'll all be on the school page. So this is coming up. Hey, Brother Gary, God has worked it all out. And so all of that's going to begin here this week. As a matter of fact, I think they're already getting the foundation laid, and they'll be working on it this week. And in the next few weeks, we'll start coming online. And then as soon as I get the first college courses ready, they'll be going online. Our books will be going on audio. I got 3 new books will be coming out the rest of the year. So it's a busy time. But we're doing it now. This is going to be our legacy of what we leave behind, of what God has done in our life and what God's going to do after we're gone. We're going to leave behind messages. We're going to leave behind podcasts. And we're going to leave behind a Bible Institute online that can still train men and women after I'm in heaven. That's the greatest thing of all that I've wanted to do, is be able to train men and women and be able to preach the gospel after I'm in heaven. And this is going to make that possible. And instead of reaching 300 to 500,000 a month now on my social platforms, we're going to be reaching 5 to 10 million a month once we get up and running. It's just going to be amazing what God's going to do. So I'm so excited. And so, like I said, we had a good day yesterday at church. Vacation Bible School was last week. I think they said we had 283 kids in Vacation Bible School. Had 150 workers working with all the kids. And we ran the buses every night. And they said 16 were saved. And then had a big celebration for all the kids and their parents come in yesterday. Had a big day yesterday. Had one young person saved yesterday morning. And then the preacher was in a youth camp last weekend, the Triple S, I believe it's the Triple S, Dr. Bishop. I can't think of it. I think it's Triple S camp in Arkansas. He was there preaching last week and had 10 young people saved in the youth camp. So 27 saved this week through our church, as far as we know. And just a great day. We had the West Coast Bible College, Dr. Paul Chappell, there in Lancaster, California. They were passing through last night, and the boys sung, the quartet sung, and the guy that was with them leading the team, he talked about the school and had some things there, books of Dr. Chappell's and so on. So I got to see all the boys and gave them all some books. There were 6 of them, and I gave them all my autobiography signed and gave them all a book on the latest book on depression, and they seemed to be grateful, wanted to invest a little bit in their ministry, so we gave all books away. And I've given away so many books in the last little while. I think I had it down. I keep a list of all the books I give away. I give away 44 in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And God yesterday gave back more than that, twice as much as what I gave away. Gave it back. A man's invested in our ministry, and he came up to me and gave me a check yesterday to pay for the books I've been giving away. And I just thank the Lord how God's blessing. Hey, Miss Linda, prayed for you. I hope you're doing better this one. I hope you had a good weekend. And then we had some books sold yesterday. A lady stopped me going out of the church and got a book, and then I had a man come up to me and said, I've been burdened about all your medical bills, and said, when's your next trip to North Carolina? And he said, I want to invest and try to help y'all out. And yesterday was just a miraculous day. Then last week, God provided the finances to get our ministry launched, all these things, the cost. I've got to send out about $3,000 this week to get all those guys paid to get them started. It's not cheap. I've got to buy some apps. We got to download some apps. I think it's about $100 worth of apps. And then I've got my first book going, my new book, the Bread from Heaven devotional. I'll be going to him next week. And that's, I think I got to send $250 to get them started editing on that. So it's just money, but that's ministry. And it takes a lot to operate. And I'm not traveling, you know. I've been full-time evangelist since 1980 in full-time ministry, and now I'm not traveling anymore, so everything we do is by faith, and God meets every need. I never cease to be amazed how God absolutely provides. Hey, Brother Philip, good to see you, buddy. And God is meeting the needs not only for me and my wife, but meeting the needs for our ministry. And this is the biggest step of faith I've taken in a ministry since I was traveling full-time years ago to launch Voice of Hope. This is even bigger than that as far as the outreach. The potential is right now in the next few years, once all this is up and running, I'll be able to reach more people in a month than I could reach in 20 years traveling every day, or 50 years. I'm going to reach more people. If Jesus lets me live 10 more years, with all this going now, we're going to reach more people worldwide than I did the first 50 years of my ministry. 5 to 10 million a month minimum. And think about it. What if I get 400 or 500 being trained in the ministry in my Bible Institute every month? 400 or 500. Imagine being able to train thousands of people in foreign countries to reach their people with the gospel. And the good thing about this, there's a lot of Bible Institutes online, but they're so messed up in their doctrine. But all of this is Bible, King James Bible, things I've taught, just basic Bible truth. And we're going to ground these guys. And so I'm just praying God's going to use it in a mighty way. And I'm so thrilled. I'm excited. My wife last night was laying in bed talking. She said, "Now wait a minute. You said you're going to slow down and back up and kind of take it once." I said, "I am." But I said, "I'm excited." She said, "I can hear it." She said, "You're excited." She said, "You can't overdo it." I said, "I know," but I said, everything has a pace. And so I'm going to be paced in what I'm doing. And so we're going to get set up here in the office here in the next couple of weeks to start recording our Bible college classes, try to get the first couple done under our belt once we get set up and get it going. I've got the notes. We're going to pull out all the boxes of stuff I've got from the Bible college I taught for 9 years. I've got classes and notes and things, and I've got to go through that, retype those, and go through and get all that laid out to start teaching Bible doctrine first. I'm going to do Bible doctrine 1, 2, and 3. So that'll be 36 to 40 videos, 45 to 50-minute videos. And so it's going to be a great opportunity to be able to use this for the glory of the Lord and for His honor and for His praise. Well, so much for that. Let's get into the book of Numbers. I'm excited about Numbers. I hope you are. I hope that God is getting you ready for what He's about to give you in the book of Numbers. It is a wonderful book. Now, I'm going to do something this morning. We covered chapter 1, 2, and 3 last Friday, just because it was these chapters. To get started, there's a lot of text, but not a lot of information when you narrow it down. So I did 3 chapters Friday, and it was an overview. But basically, just like one of the chapters, I read a long chapter, but basically I summed it up in 5 minutes. Everything that's in it, because there's a lot of repetition. There's several more chapters like that. There's one chapter here, I think it's chapter 7, which is the second longest chapter in the Bible. The first one is Psalms 119. This is the second longest chapter. It has 89 verses. Dr. J. Vernon McGee said it's a monotonous chapter. And it is, because it says the same thing over and over again. Because what it does, you remember every tribe had to have a prince for the census. Well, these princes bring offerings to the tabernacle. And that whole chapter is nothing but just about the offerings the princes bring. He names every one of them, their name and what they bring. And then the next guy, he brings the same offering. And it's just the same thing. It's a long chapter, But it's just basically naming the people their names of who the princes are and what they give as an offering. And there's a point to it, but when you're reading it, it seems monotonous until you get through and you understand the point. So I want to go back and kind of catch up a little bit for you that weren't there Friday on the podcast. And I want to overview everything for you for the book of Numbers, the entire book of Numbers. Basically, you come out of Egypt with 2 million people, and you go into Canaan with 2 million people. Now, how can that be? Because they're all multiplying. He told them multiplying. They're 40 years in the wilderness. They're having babies every day, but they're dying every day, as many as 70 a day. Why? Because of their unbelief that takes place in Kadesh Barnea. All those 20 and up die in the wilderness. So you have as many people die as are being born. Basically, it's births equal deaths. There's as many born, many die as they are born. So the number of the population doesn't grow in 40 years. Matter of fact, the number of fighting age men decreases. You go in with 603,000, come out with 603,000, go in with 601,000. They lose almost 2,000 net when they go into Canaan. Because there's a lot of deaths. The 2 million come out of Egypt, over 2 million, and 2 million goes into Canaan. So that's because of their unbelief. So when you look at Numbers, I give you the Greek word in the Greek Septuagint, Numbers, arithmoi, which means arithmetic. But the Hebrew word for Numbers comes from this thought of census, is the word bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. It has the thought of in the wilderness, and that's what this story is about, Israel in the wilderness. The time frame is from 1446 BC to 1406 BC, about 40 years, 38 point something years, almost 39 years, and then a year to get, so it's about 40 years they're in the wilderness. There's 3 movements in Numbers. You see them, they start out in Mount Sinai, from chapter 1 through chapter 10, verse 10. And then in chapter 10, verse 11, they start their wilderness wandering all the way through chapter 21. And in chapter 22, they find themselves in the plains of Moab before they go into the promised land. So that's the 3 movements in the book of Numbers. The theme of the book of Numbers is the journey of unbelief to their inheritance. They go through this journey of unbelief of 40 years to get to the promised land. And the key verse is Numbers 14:34. That's the key verse in this entire book. It's Numbers 14:34. You need to underline that and keep that in your heart as the main theme of this verse. Verse 34, in the number of the days in which he searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year shall you bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and you shall know my breach of promise. So how did God determine 40 years in the wilderness? The spies that went into the land to spy out the land, they were there 40 days, and 10 of them come back and said, we can't do it. 2 said we can, because their unbelief kept them out of Canaan. So God said, for every day you search the land, you're going to spend a year in the wilderness. So they spent 40 years. That's the theme of the book, 40 years in the wilderness, because of 40 years searching the land, and they ended up in unbelief. And God gives us verses in the New Testament that teach us what this is for as it relates to the church. In the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, God talks about this in verse number 6. He said, now these things were our examples, to the extent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. So God said all these things that Israel did in the wilderness is for your example, so you won't lust after things like they did. And then in Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 17, he gives a solemn warning to us about what Israel did and their mistake and their unbelief. And God says in chapter 3 of Hebrews in verse 17, he said, but with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness? And to whom sware he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believe not? So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. So those are the verses that God gives us to remind us in the New Testament not to do what they did, the Old Testament. Hey, Tiffany, good to see you. So now we're in the book of Numbers. And so the important points to remember, there's 2 censuses that take place in Numbers 1. That's the census of 20 and up that are fighting age. It turns out to be 603,550, 20 years and up. And then in chapter 26, they do a census again when they come to the end of the 40 years wandering. And there's 601,730 fighting men, about 1,800 different, less. So they did not gain anything in the wilderness. They lost more than they gained. As many as come out of Egypt as many as went into Canaan, less some, because of their unbelief. Every 120 and up died in the wilderness, but Caleb and Joshua. There's 5 major rebellions in the book of Numbers. We'll cover all this as we go. I'm just giving you a quick overview. 5 major rebellions in chapter 11. They complained at Taberah. They complained. They said, we're tired of this manna. They despised the manna that God sent every day. And because of that, the fire fell. And then in the second major rebellion is in chapter 11, verse 4 through 34. They lusted for meat. They said, we despise this manna. Would to God was back in Egypt. We want some meat. So God sent them quail. And they eat so much quail, God says it came out their nostrils. They literally vomited up through their nostrils. And I'm not being gross, but some of you know that if you've ever been sick and vomited before, sometimes you vomit so hard it comes out your nose. Well, that's what they did. They had so much quail. They wanted meat, lusting after the meat, wanted to go back to Egypt. Wish we had some meat, so sick of this manna. So God sent quail in from the east wind. They said it was an knee-high. They picked up every quail they could get, cooked it, and ain't nothing better than quail. Good old grilled quail, baste it real good, salt it and pepper it, man. Put a little seasoning on it, baste you a quail, man. I could eat it off the bone. But man, they ate so much, they were so hungry for meat, they ate it till they puked it out their nostrils. So that was the second rebellion. The third rebellion come from Moses' sister and brother, Miriam and Aaron. And they basically rebelled against Moses. And rebelled against his leadership and authority, and rebelled against his wife who he married, the woman of Ethiopia, chapter 12. And what did God do? He struck Miriam, Moses' sister, with leprosy. I'm telling you, this is an exciting book. They get mad, God gets mad, God judges them. I mean, it's just a book of complaining and rebellion and murmuring. And then the fourth rebellion is seen let's see, what are you? I missed it somehow or another. That was the 3 rebellions, 5 major rebellions. I missed 2 of them. But anyway, I don't know what I did with them, but I missed them somewhere. Yeah, but that's the rebellions. And then we come to the application. We have the different things happen. The wilderness doesn't change God's promises, but it reveals the evil heart, reveals our heart. That's all the wilderness was for. It was not about changing God's promises, but it's about revealing the evil heart of mankind. And God did reveal the evil heart. So all of this points to the application for today. How does this apply to us? It shows God's provision. God gave them manna every day. It shows the leadership God puts in place. Moses, he struck the rock twice and disobeyed God, and God wouldn't let him go into the wilderness, into the promised land. So leadership is important. Even leadership has to obey God, and Moses was not allowed to go into the promised land because he disobeyed God as the leader. After all that time, bringing them through the wilderness, getting them out of Egypt, and he didn't go into the land. And then the third thing that God teaches us, applies to us, is the promised land that God said that, they would go into the promised land. He gave them this. He said, this is your promised land. God said he gave it to them. And he said they just had to obey. They just had to take it. They had to go in and possess the land. The outline of the book is pretty simple. The first 4 chapters deal with the intro and the census. We talked about that on Friday. Chapter 5 and 6 deals with the purity, the camp of the holy, the purity, and the Nazirite vow. Chapter 7 through 10 deals with them departing from Mount Sinai as they head through the wilderness, being led by the trumpets and the guidance of the pillar of fire and the cloud. And then also the complaining and the spirit of complaining that took place in 11 and 12, which complained about their appetite, complained about the authority of Moses. And then chapter 13, 14, Kadesh Barnea, the rebellion there. That was the great failure of Israel. And then the aftermath of that and the law that God brings back to their mind in chapter 15. And it shows grace after judgment. Even after God's judgment of putting them in the wilderness for 40 years, God still gave them grace. And then Korah's rebellion in chapter 16 and 17, where God judged Korah because he stood against the authority of Moses, and the failure of that family, how God destroyed them. And then the priesthood and the water problem in chapter 18 through 20, the failure of Moses when he struck the rock twice. And then the bronze serpent on a pole and the victories that God gained in chapter 21. Look and live is the theme of that chapter. And then Balaam shows up in 22, 23, and 24, and how that God knows what goes on. He took what was meant for a curse and turned it into a blessing. And then you have the problem at Baal Peor and the new census that takes place in chapter 25 and 26, where God emphasizes holiness and the new generation that survives all the judgment of God of the 20 plus dying in the wilderness. Hey, Brother Larry, good to see you. And then the laws of the inheritance in chapter 27 to 36, God establishes what tribes get what, who the inheritance, the promises of God. And he even brings up the story of the daughter of Zelophehad, Zelophehad, Zelophehad. There's a promise that God keeps with this person, the daughter of Zelophehad. And it's a great promise of how God keeps his word about the inheritance, even to someone. You'll read the story when we get there. And then the vows and the vengeance of God comes up in chapter 30 and 31. And then chapter 32 and 33, you have the tribal boundaries where God puts everybody in their place. In Canaan, the tribal boundaries, what tribe goes where, what the boundaries are, the settling in the land of Canaan. And then he comes to the summary and the conclusion. But in the last thing he does in chapter 34 and 35, he establishes the city of refuge. 6 cities of refuge that gives Israel a place to run to when someone commits a crime and they need to be heard without being judged first, not to be killed before the case is heard. Somebody may have killed somebody accidentally, and their family wants to take an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but they run to the city of refuge, and the judge of that city begins to hear the case and possibly set them free. If it is a just thing, they may have to pay a price, but they'll not be slain or murdered in the stead of the person that they accidentally killed. So just a lot of things in the book of Numbers. It's an interesting book, and it's full of a lot of drama. It's almost like a soap opera. So you're going to enjoy it. I'm already enjoying studying it. I've already studied through chapter 8 or 9, got all my notes, everything underlined. So let's get started today in chapter 4. So I'm going to do as I usually do. I'm going to read the chapter, and we'll go through it. Then we'll come back and we will make some notes at the end. So chapter 4 in the book of Numbers, a pretty lengthy chapter, so follow with me. Verse number 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron. He's still talking to Moses. Moses is still in charge. So everything God is doing, he's doing through the person, the prophet Moses. The head, basically the voice of God. Verse 2, take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi after their families by the house of the fathers. And Kohath was one of the sons of the Levites, one of the sons here that's mentioned. So in verse 30, from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. So here he's beginning to talk about the service of the 3 sons of the Levites, Kohath, Gershon, and the other one I can't remember, but we'll get to him here in a minute. So verse 3, this shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. When the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of the testimony. The first thing they did when they got ready to move, they took down the veil and covered the ark with it. Nobody saw the ark but Aaron and the sons of Aaron. But they covered the ark so when it moved and traveled, nobody saw it because it was holy and only Aaron and his sons could see it. And so they covered the ark of the testimony, verse 6, and put thereon the covering of badger skins, and shall spread it over with a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put the staves therein, staves in the ark. And upon the table of showbread they shall put a cloth of blue, and put therein the dishes, the spoons, the bowls are covered withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon. And they shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, covered the same with a covering of badger skins, and put it in the staves. So they're taking the coverings of the tabernacle and putting it on the furniture, and then put the staves through it so it can be carried by the Levites. Verse 9, they shall take a cloth of blue and cover the candlestick of the light and the lamps, its tongs and the snuff dishes and all the oil vessels wherewith the ministered. So not just the furniture, but all the tools and instruments were put with it, and it was all covered, protected as they traveled with the staves through it, and the Levites picked it up and carried it on the shoulders. Verse number 10, they shall put it with all the vessels thereof, with a covering of badger skin, shall put it under it upon a bar. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue and cover it with a covering of badger skins. The badger skin, was on the out covering of the tabernacle, and it was waterproof. That was the last covering. The badger skin protected everything from the rain and the elements. So that was the last thing that would cover the pieces of furniture, so it'd be protected as they travel if they went through bad weather. So verse number 12. And they shall take all the instruments of ministry wherewith they minister in the sanctuary, put them in a cloth of blue, cover them with a covering of badger skin, and shall put them on a bar. So they put everything in a badger skin, wrapped in all the cloths of blue, and then put them on a bar, one of the bars that's used to hold up the tabernacle. They carried the furniture with, and that's how they carried it. They carried it in between the Levites, carried it on a bar. Verse 13, they shall take away the ashes from the altar and spread a purple cloth upon thereon. They shall put it upon the vessels thereof, wherein the flesh hooks, the shovels, the basins, the vessels of the altar, spread upon the covering of badger skin, and put the staves to it. So they did the same thing with the brazen altar, cleaned out the ashes and covered it, put the staves to it so it could be carried. And when Aaron and his sons had made an end of covering the sanctuary and all the vessels of the sanctuary, as the camp is so set forward, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it, but they shall not touch any holy thing lest they die. These things are the burden of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle congregation. So they were responsible for the furniture and all the tools and instruments to carry them, but they could not touch them. They carried the staves that held everything together, covered by the blue cloths, the coverings, and the badger skin. Now, verse 16, the office of Eleazar. To the office of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, pertaineth the oil for the light. So Aaron's son Eleazar was responsible for the oil for the lamp and the sweet incense for the altar of incense, and the daily meat offering and the anointing oil, and the oversight of all the tabernacle and all that is therein is, in the sanctuary, in the vessels thereof. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, Cut ye not off the tribe of the families of the Goites from among the Levites, but do this to them, that they may live and not die when they approach unto the most holy things. Aaron and his sons shall go in and appoint them every one to his service and to his burden, but they shall not go in to see when the holy things are covered, lest they die. So Aaron had to make sure that he did everything right. So when the Kohaths come in, Kohaths, everyone will say it, came in to carry and to move the furniture, that they didn't touch it or see it in a way that where it was uncovered, and they die. So there was a protection here. Aaron's son Eleazar and Aaron's sons, two of them. So verse 21, he spake unto Moses, Take the sum of the sons of Gershon. So here's the other son of Levi, Gershon, throughout the houses of their families, by their fathers, by their families, from 30 years old and upward to 50. So that was the age of the Levites in the service of the tabernacle, 30 to 50. And all that entered to perform the service, to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This is the service of the family of the Gershonites to serve and for burdens. This is what they do when the tabernacle is sitting, and this is what they do when they're moving, carrying the burdens. They shall bear the curtains of the tabernacle, and the tabernacle congregation his covering, the covering of the badger skin that is above upon it, and the hanging of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the hangings of the court, the hangings for the door of the court, which is by the tabernacle and by the altar round about, their cords, their instruments of service, and all that is made for them, so they serve. At the appointment of Aaron and his sons shall all the service of the sons of the Gershonites and all their burdens and all their service, you shall appoint them in charge of all the burdens. This is the service of the family of the sons of Gershonite in the tabernacle of the congregation, and their charge shall be under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. So God establishes an order. Aaron's son Ithamar is over the son of Levi, Gershon, tells them what to do when the tabernacle is set up and what to do when the tabernacle is moving. The safety barrier of leadership, order. God is a God of order. Verse number 29. And the sons of Merari, this is the third son of Levi. Thou shalt number them after the families by the house of the fathers. So they numbered them, they censored them. Got a census, know how many they're dealing with. From 30 years old and upward, that's the age of service for the Levites. And how to number them, every one of them enter into the service to do the work of the tabernacle of the congregation. This is the charge of their burden when the tabernacle is moving. According to all the service in the tabernacle of the congregation, the boards of the tabernacle, the bars thereof, the pillars thereof, the sockets thereof, the pillars of the court round about, their sockets and their pins and their cords with all the instruments, with all their service. By name ye shall reckon the instruments of the charge of the burden. This is the service of the family of the sons of Merari, according to all their service in the tabernacle of the congregation, under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. And Moses and Aaron and the chief of the congregation numbered the sons of the Kohites after their families and the house of their families, from 30 years old and upward to 50, everyone that worketh in the service and worketh in the tabernacle of the congregation. Those that were numbered by them, by their families, were 2,750. That's in the first family. These were they that were the number of the families of the Kohathites, all that might do service in the tabernacle of the congregation, which Moses, Aaron, his son, did number according to the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And those that were numbered of the sons of Gershon, so he numbers them, throughout all the families, from 30 years old to 50, everyone that entered in the service, work at the tabernacle, even those that were numbered of them throughout their families by the house of the fathers were 2,630. These are the numbers of the families of the Gershonites that may do the service, so forth and so on. Verse 42. Those that were numbered of the families of Merari throughout their families, from 30 to 50 years old, entered into the work of the tabernacle. Verse 44. Those who were numbered were 3,200. That was the biggest family. And these be those that were numbered, according to Moses, by the hand of the Lord. Verse 46. All those that were numbered of the Levites, whom Moses and Aaron and chief Israel numbered by their house of the families, the house of the fathers, from 30 years old to 50, everyone that came to do service of the ministry and service of the burden of the tabernacle, even those that were numbered was 8,580. So that's the number of Levites in the three different families, Gershon, Kohath, and the last one is Merari. These three sons, every male that was 30 to 50 that served in the tabernacle and served when the tabernacle was carried and moved, setting it up and tearing it down, they were 8,580. Pretty big crowd. And it took every one of them to handle all this stuff. According to the commandment of the Lord, they were numbered by the hand of the Lord, every one according to his service, according to his burden. Thus were they numbered of him as of the Lord commanded Moses. That's not the entire tribe of Levi. That's just those 30 to 50 males that are serving in the tabernacle. Okay? So you got 8,000 Levites and then the house of Aaron and his two sons. So let's go back over to chapter 4 real quick, give you some things to think about. The three families of the tribe of Levi had service to perform about the tabernacle. This chapter tells who is to serve and what the order of the service was and how many there were in the tribe who served. The prime life of the Levites was from the years of 30 to 50. Those were the years they were allowed to serve. The only ones who ever saw the articles that belonged in the Holy of Holies, the ark and the mercy seat, was Aaron and his sons. Those articles were carefully covered by Aaron and his sons before the Kohathites came to carry them. So before the tabernacle was moved and before the Kohathites came in to move the furniture, especially the Ark of the Covenant mercy seat and the cherubim and all that in that holy place, Holy Holies, it had to be covered by Aaron and his sons. They were the only one that ever got to go in and see that. So that's part of what chapter 4 tells in verses 4 through 6 and verse 15. So in verses 24 and 25, you have the list goes on concerning the responsibility of Gershon's household that served, and they're responsible for the hangings and the cords. The hangings and the cords that are draped around the tabernacle, and the hangings, which will be all the coverings, and they were, you remember they were 5 layers of coverings. So you've got all of these things that are covering the linen and the badger skins and so forth, and the scarlet. So I've been going through all that in the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus in earlier chapters. So in chapter 4, verse 29, 31, and 32, you have Merari comes on the scene, and they carry the heavy articles, the pillars and the boards and the bars. That's the frame of everything, the outer court as well as the tabernacle. Merari had the biggest family number of 30 to 50. So they were given the larger, heavier articles because there were more of them. And so they assigned to them all the heavy stuff, the pillars, the sockets, the bars, everything that's 8 to 10 feet tall that's holding up all the curtains. Those are the heavy pieces. So Merari's family gets those. The Kohathites carry the articles of furniture. The Gershonites carry what seems the easiest job, carrying the curtains, the coverings, and the cords. And then Merari carries the rest, the bars and all the sockets and everything that holds up the frame. Moses and Aaron simply had to watch and follow the leading that the Spirit of God gave them, for the pillar of cloud represented the Spirit of God. So Moses and Aaron's responsibility is to watch the pillar of fire, the cloud by day, the fire by night. And if it started moving, they were instructed to move. And we don't know how long it took to tear down or set up, but several Bible scholars, and J. Vernon McGee says They probably got so good with it, they probably could have took it down in 30 minutes to an hour, be ready to move within an hour. Because you're talking about 8,000 men working in a thing that's basically just a rectangular of curtains, and the furniture is not many pieces, a lot of instruments, but not hundreds of pieces of furniture. The outer court wall is made just of the bars and the big pillars, and then all the coverings. So you got 8,000 men working together in their assigned position. They could probably tear everything down, have it covered and on their shoulders, ready to move within 30 minutes to an hour. Same thing with the tent crew. You get a tent crew setting up a big tent, and I've seen it before, and our tents are bigger than the tabernacle was. We had a tent one time seat 7,000. It was 150 by 300. And it had 9 poles in the middle, and had hundreds, about 140 side poles, besides the quarter poles, half poles, stakes. And so it took a day to get it in the air. But we'd only have about 100 men, 150 men working. But now you got Israel, got over 8,000 men working to tear down a tent that's nowhere near the size of our tents. And they no doubt could probably get it tore down in just less than an hour or so. And once they stopped, it has to go up first because everything surrounded the tabernacle. It was the first thing. So as soon as the pillar of fire stopped or the pillar of cloud stopped, then it'd stop and God would say, this is it, we'll camp here. First thing up is the tabernacle. And I'd say within an hour it's ready to be used because they had so many working. Everybody knew their job, their place. Everybody had a job. So when the pillar of fire lifted, immediately Aaron and his sons went into the holy place behind the veil first, and they would cover the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat, and the Holy of Holies there. They'd cover it so the Kohathites could come in and move it. So that was the first thing happened. As soon as everything started moving, then they started covering up the mercy seat first and all the other instruments out in the holy place. Once they were covered, the men started tearing down all the pieces of the tabernacle and the outer court, the brazen altar and the laver of cleansing. They were ready to haul. They were ready to go. They were ready to move. And so it was a work of splendor to see. But God's a God of order. And God established everything. And every man had his assignment. Every man had his assignment. And when Israel came into the camp, the Kohathites would first put down the articles of furniture. Merari would come in with the boards and the bars to put up his part. Then Gershon would put the coverings. And finally the high priest would remove the veil, hang it, and then to put the last thing would take the coverings off of the ark. And after 40 years of practice, they must have been pretty good at it. And so God just had everything in order. They put the furniture down first and then built the tabernacle around it. We do houses different. We built a house and put furniture in. They put the furniture in first and covered it, and then they took the coverings off the furniture, and then it was sealed so nobody could see it but the priest. So it was a really marvelous act of what they did. And that's basically it in chapter 4. I mean, I could talk about it for a while, and you'd hear the same thing over and over again. But basically in chapter 4, that's what God tells us. 3 families, their responsibility, under the leadership of Aaron and Moses. And Aaron's 2 sons were given oversight like an overseer to make sure that everybody did their job right so they didn't get killed by touching something or seeing something they weren't supposed to see. So everything was done in order. All that Aaron had to do, and Moses, is when the pillar of fire or cloud started moving, then they went in first and covered up the ark in the mercy seat. From then on, it was just every man do your job. And that's basically how the church is supposed to operate. Every man has a job. Hey, Don, every person has a responsibility. And if everybody does their part, nothing goes undone. I used to say when I was pastoring, we'd have a project or raising money for a special project. I'd always say if everybody does a little, nobody has to do a lot. It's everybody doing what God places you to do. And God gives unto every man a measure of faith, and God gives unto every man gift or gifts. Some people get more than one gift, but every person has a gift. And that gift's to be used for God's service. So I don't know what you're doing or what God's given you the ability to do, but God's given you a job to do. You say, preacher, I can't do anything. No, you're wrong. God, when he saved you, God instilled, there's gifts in you when you was born. God gave you certain abilities. Some folks have the ministry of helps. I've had ladies in churches I pastored that was just the biggest helpers. Whatever I needed, If we was going to prepare a meal or a banquet I can just say, or decorate, I just call Sister so-and-so. I had a secretary for years, Pearl Ivan. She was my secretary, Pearl. And I'd say, Pearl, I need this. And she was just, in every church I've had ladies like that. I've had men like that. I've had men that I could say, guys, we're going to do this on Saturday. We're going to have this special thing and I need this done. It'd be done. I need a couple of crosses built for a message I'm going to do, or I'm going to do this. I need this. I just have to say it is done. The ministry of helps. Some folks have the ministry of organization. Well, they can organize stuff. Some folks have the gift of leadership. They can be in leadership. Some are called musical gifts. Some no doubt preachers, missionaries, evangelists. Everybody has a gift, and God has something for everybody to do. It's just your responsibility to find out what God has placed you here to do and do it. To do your responsibility. Do what God's given you the ability to do. Now let's go to chapter 5. I'm not rushing, but that's really all that needs to be said about chapter 4. If you want to go back and read it a couple of times, it's going to be the same thing. 3 families of Levi given the responsibilities in the tabernacle when it's set up and moving it when they travel. And Aaron and his sons were responsible to oversee it to make sure nobody died. That's it. And the job that was the biggest was given to Merari because that was the heavy stuff. And he had the biggest number in his family, so they were given that. No doubt that's the reason. God gave him that job because they were better equipped because they had more people. Okay? Y'all got that? Now chapter 5. It's a short chapter. And the Lord spake unto Moses, same again, command the children of Israel that they put out of the camp every leper. So now here's a different thing. Out of nowhere now he's talking about who's got to be kicked out of the camp. Why? Because God is raising up a holy people. So to have a holy people, you got to have a holy camp. So when the tabernacle is set up, there's some people that can't stay in the camp because they would defile it. One of them is a leper. To kick out of the camp of every leper that's found to have leprosy, everyone that hath an issue, whosoever is defiled by the dead. So 2 things. If you were a leper or if you were defiled by a dead body, they'd kick you out of the camp because touching the dead body, mishandling the bodies of the dead would defile you. So you had to go outside the camp. Verse 3. Both male and female shall be put out without the camp, shall you be put out, that they defile not the camps in the midst whereof I dwell. Because God says, I'm holy, and I dwell in the midst of a holy people. So if you're going to be holy, you can't be defiled. And a leper or someone who is defiled by a dead body cannot be in the midst of what God calls holy. Verse 4. Children of Israel did so, put them out without the camp. So the Lord spake unto Moses, so did the children of Israel. And the Lord spake unto Moses, verse 5, speaking to the children of Israel, when a woman or a man shall commit any sin that men commit, and do a trespass against the Lord, and that person be guilty, they shall confess their sin which they have done. He shall recompense his trespass with the principal thereof, and add unto it a 5th part, and give it unto him against whose he's trespassed. So if somebody sins against somebody else, they're found guilty, they've got to make an offering to make it right. This is called restitution. This is one of the first time this is brought up in the Bible. This is part of the laws given to Israel here. The law of restitution. You've got to make right what you did wrong to a brother, sister, and you got to add a 5th part. That's 20%. So if you, by mistake or accident, kill a man's cow or sheep, then you're to replace it, but you add 20% to it. Or if you sin against a man some way, you cheat him, you deceive him, and you give back what you've taken from him, plus a 5th. That's even more than the interest they charge on banks now. Verse 8. And if the man have no kinsman to recompense the trespass unto, let the trespasser be recompensed unto the Lord, even to the priest, beside the ram of the atonement, whereby the atonement shall be made for him. So if he doesn't have anybody can help him make it right, no kinsman, then the priest has to do this in atonement. And every offering of all the holy things of the children of Israel, which they bring to the priest, shall be his. So basically, the offerings that are brought to the Day of Atonement will help cover his trespass. And every man's hallowed thing shall be his, whatsoever any man giveth the priest, it shall be his. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, and saying to them, if any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him, talking about sexual sin, if a man lie with her carnally, be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close, she be defiled, and there be no witness against her, neither shall she be taken with the banner. and the spirit of jealousy come upon him. So now, this is the first time this ever mentioned, the spirit of jealousy. Woman is accused of something, and there's no evidence, verse 13, and her husband gets jealous over what he's hearing. The spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he'd be jealous of his wife, and she'd be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy come on him and be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled, whether she's guilty or not. If her husband gets jealous over what has happened or he's heard that has happened, but she's innocent, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring her offering for her. So the man has to take his wife to the priest, and he has to bring an offering for her, the 10th part of an ephod of barley meal. He shall pour no oil on it, or put frankincense on it. It's an offering of jealousy. It's a jealousy offering. You ever heard of that? Boy, there'd be a bunch of people in America offering offerings if they went by jealousy offering. An offering of memorial bringing iniquity to remembrance. So this man brings his wife to the priest and brings a jealousy offering of an ephod of barley. No frankincense and no oil. So verse 16, the priest shall bring her near and set her before the Lord. And the priest shall take holy water and earth. Now, there's a test he does. This is so strange. This is how God set it up, and God is miraculous. So God had a way of doing things. This is how God did it for Israel. So if this woman's accused, whether she's innocent or not, the man's jealous, so he wants to find out. He wants to settle it. He brings offering to the priest, and the priest takes holy water in an earthen vessel, and of the dust that's in the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall take and put it in the water. So he takes water in an earthen vessel, holy water, and takes some of the dust off the floor of the tabernacle, the dirt off the ground, the floor of the tabernacle, and puts it in the holy water. And the priest shall set the woman before the Lord. He's putting her before the Lord, and uncover the woman's head, and put the offering of memorial in her hands, which is the jealousy offering. So he puts the ephod of meal in her hands. That's the jealousy offering. And the priest shall have in his hand the bitter water that causeth the curse. So the priest has the earthen vessel with the water mixed with the dirt. The woman has the offering in her hands, and her head's uncovered. This is the test to prove whether or not she's guilty. Boy, this is something. This is interesting. Verse 19. And the priest shall charge her by an oath, and say unto the woman, If no man hath lain with thee, and thou hast not gone aside to uncleanness with another instead of thy husband, be thou free from the bitter water that causeth the curse. He said, if you haven't done anything and you're innocent, you be free of this curse in this water. Verse 20. But if you're guilty, if you've gone aside to another instead of thy husband, and you're defiled, some man has lain with thee beside thy husband, then the priest shall charge the woman with oath of cursing, and the priest shall say unto the woman, The Lord make thee a curse and an oath among the people, and the Lord doth make thy thigh to rot and thy belly to swell. So he said, how we're going to know is God's going to judge you, and your thigh's going to rot and your belly's going to swell. And this water that causeth the curse shall go into thy bowels to make thy belly to swell and thy thigh to rot. And the woman say, Amen, amen. She says, so be it. I agree. And the priest shall write these curses in a book, and shall blot them out with the bitter water. And he shall cause the woman to drink the bitter water that causeth the curse. So she drinks the dirty holy water, which is now unholy water. Everything's been written down. The curse is going to come on her. Her thigh's going to rot, her belly's going to swell, and she's going to be cursed if she's guilty. And the water that causeth the curse shall enter into her and become bitter. Then the priest shall take the jealousy offering out of the woman's hand, shall wave the offering before the Lord, that's the meal, and offer it upon the altar. He's offering an offering for her, in case she's guilty. And the priest shall take a handful of the offering, even the memorial thereof, and burn it on the altar. Afterwards shall cause the woman to drink the water. So he takes the meal out of her hands, waves it before God, takes a handful out, puts it on the fire, and then he causes her after that to drink the water. Verse 27. When she hath made herself to drink the water, then it shall come to pass that if she be defiled, and hath done trespass against her husband, that the water that causeth the curse shall enter into her and become bitter, her belly will swell, and her thigh will rot, and the woman shall be a curse among the people. But if the woman be not defiled, but be clean, then she shall be free, and shall conceive seed, And this is the law of jealousies, when a wife goeth outside to another instead of her husband, and is defiled, or when the spirit of jealousy cometh upon him, and he be jealous over his wife, and set the woman before the Lord, and the priest execute upon her all this law, then shall the man be guiltless from iniquity, and this woman shall bear her iniquity. So the man, she doesn't have to even be guilty. The man, if he just gets jealous of her, hey, Deanie, good to see you, he can take her to the priest and do all this. This was a law of judgment to find out if a woman was guilty or not. If she's guilty, her thigh would rot and her belly would swell. If not, she'd be free. You say, that's really strange. Well, that's what God established. You got to understand, he's dealing with 2+ million people that just came out of Egypt after 400 years in Egypt. They're filled with all types of iniquity, all types of idolatry, all types of worldly ways. And he's done give them the law and the 10 Commandments and all the things that we read about in Exodus and Leviticus. All the things that God established for Israel. It's a complicated mess when you look at it from a human standpoint. Hey, Jeannie, it's a complicated mess to try to look at all of this and say, man, I couldn't keep up. Well, that's why they had priests. That's why there were thousands of priests keeping up with all the law, because it was a complicated rules and regulations. And in this case, a woman didn't have to even be guilty. If her husband got jealous of her because she was so beautiful and men looked at her, he could say, you've been unfaithful to me. He could take her to the priest and say, my wife's been unfaithful. I'm so jealous. And so there was a jealousy offering. And there was a test to prove if she was guilty or not. So let me make some comments about chapter 5. You come to the orderly arrangement of the camp, which is preparation for the wilderness march. God's put everything in order. There has to be a preparation. We come to the instructions now concerning cleansing the camp, which includes chapter 5 through 8. All of this is about cleansing the camp. We need to recognize the reason for the cleansing is that they, Israel, and we were serving a holy God. So the reason God is putting these instructions in place is because we're serving a holy God, and everything God wants us to do has to be holy. So the camp of Israel had to be holy. Hey, Miss Linda, what happened if she wouldn't drink it? She would be declared guilty, I assume, because if she didn't drink it, she was admitting guilt. That's assumed. That's not said, but there's no mention of a woman not drinking it. If a woman's guilty, she would drink and hoping that it wouldn't make her sick. But if she wasn't guilty, she knew she had nothing to worry, because you got to understand, this to us, this is so silly. And I don't want to drink no dirty water, but it was holy water with some dust in it. So it's not going to kill him, because God didn't do it to kill him. God did it to prove somebody was guilty. So it's a miraculous thing, whether it works or doesn't work. If she gets sick or not, it's a miraculous thing for God to protect them if they're innocent, and God to make them sick if they're guilty. And then God to prove the husband is just a jealous husband, and he needs to keep his mouth shut. If he's accused her of stuff she didn't do, it'll prove him to be a fool. But she'll bear her own sin. It's strange to us, Linda, because we're Gentiles. But to them, you got to go back and all the things we've covered so far, this is nothing compared to all that other stuff. All those things about the leper and all those things, other stuff, some of those stuff we went through here a few weeks ago. Some of that was like, my soul. My wife said, that's complicated. So this ain't nothing compared to some of the stuff he's had them do. But this is part of what God's law is. Because you got to understand, God is wanting to establish a holy people. And I guess somebody will try to be holy if they know they're going to end up drinking dirty water. I don't want to drink no water, holy water with dirt off the ground. Of course, children eat dirt. My brother and sister used to play before I was born. Mama said we lived on a real long dirt road, and the cars, the hubcaps and the wheels would get dust on them from the road. My mama said that they'd be out there playing, and said my brother used to take his finger and lick around the wheel and the hubcap and lick off that dust on wheel and think he's eating cocoa. Kids eat dirt, make mud pies. We've all done that. It's crazy. What happened to the husband? Well, that's always, but there's no partiality here. We're going to see that later. God judges the husband too. If he's guilty, he would be judged too, because he brings this up about adultery in the next couple chapters. And the man is judged just like the woman is. But in this case, this is not about the sin of the husband. It's about the jealousy. The husband thinks his wife has been unfaithful, or he's heard that she's been unfaithful. This is not about a woman thinking her husband's been unfaithful. This is all about the woman. The man's not brought up yet. He comes up later. So you got that? So now verse number 1 through 4, they were to put lepers out of the camp. This may seem cruel to us, but there was a definite reason for it. The danger of contamination and transmission of disease was the main reason. Because if there was a leper in the camp, once they sat down in a place, if there were lepers that showed up in the camp, then they had to move him from the camp because of fear of contaminating the entire camp. And God said he wants everything to be holy. And so we read the camp was not to be defiled because God dwelt in the midst of the camp. God said, I walk in the midst of a holy people. So you could not have a leper in the camp. God commanded certain ones to be put out of the camp. The issue comes up with people that defile themselves with dead bodies. They were also to be put out of the camp. It was God's command who were excluded from the camp, lepers and those that were messing with dead bodies and touched them and became contaminated. Just some strict rules. There again, it doesn't make sense to us, but we're Gentiles. Israel had certain ones who had to be put out of camp. You get to the book of Joshua, you'll find out that even at the victory at Ai, that they couldn't get a victory because someone had taken, Achan had taken the things from Ai, and because of what he had sin in the camp, God said there was sin in the camp, and Israel couldn't even have victory in battle because the camp was defiled. They'll even be later on in Deuteronomy, and we'll talk about this. God even talks about the men in battle, that if they had to use the bathroom, they had a paddle. Every soldier had a paddle that he carried with him, like a little mini shovel, a little paddle. And if a man had to relieve himself in the wilderness, they were fighting a battle and God was with them in battle. God said if a man had to relieve himself and like going to the bathroom, he was to take that paddle and dig a hole and to cover it up, because God said, I walk in the midst of the people and I don't want to walk in the midst of unholiness and uncleanness. And I preached a message on that, and watch where you step. Because a lot of people have a lot of mess in the church and they don't cover it, they try to cover it up, but you have to watch where you step. Because some people, just their mess is everywhere. They don't deal with their sins, they don't get it under the blood. And God said everything that comes out of you, it'll be a defilement to me because it's unholy, and I won't even walk in the midst of you because I don't want to be defiled. And God had to be with it. God put so many strict restrictions on Israel, but he's trying to build a holy nation. That's why we can't comprehend that, even though we're supposed to be holy. But thinking about if you have a jealous man in the church and bringing his wife to the preacher and him making her drink holy water with dirt in it, and if she's guilty, her belly will swell up and her thigh will rot. Well, that would just be that you wouldn't have any members left in the church. Everybody run for the mountain hiding. But that's not how God deals with us today. But God did then. And when you get in the book of Numbers and you see how the people treat God, you understand why God's treating them this way, because they're stubborn. I mean, they just made a calf back there in the wilderness. Moses was gone up the mountain too long. And they made a golden calf to worship a God that wasn't real. And if they're willing to do that so quick out of Egypt, God is setting strict standards here for the law that he gave Moses on the tablets, the law of adultery. And if the man thinks his wife's guilty, then there's a way that they can prove whether she is or not. And God gave the priest the ability to do this test, and if she's guilty, she's going to swell up and rot. If she don't swell up and rot, then the man's just overjealous, and I'm sure he'll get a talking to. But the man's dealt with later. So, the law of restitution comes up, verses 5 and 7. You remember Zacchaeus, the little man, wee little man? Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. You heard that. Well, Zacchaeus climbed up in the tree. When he came down, he made a promise to Jesus, I'll restore fourfold everything I've taken unlawfully. That's the law of restitution. But God didn't require fourfold. Zacchaeus went far beyond the law. He said, I'll restore fourfold in Luke 19:8, but he was actually going further than the Mosaic law required of him. This is the law of restitution. Repentance is more than just simply saying, I'm sorry. A relationship between God and the individual cannot be made sweet until the relationship is made right between individuals. I can't be right with God till I'm right with my brother. Godly sorrow worketh repentance to salvation, not to be repented of, but the sorrow of the world worketh death, 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10. Many people today think that repentance means shedding a few tears, then going merrily on your way. But it's much more than that. It is making things right by making restitution to the individuals who have been injured. I had a man one time, first church I pastored, he got right with God, and he wrote a check and made his back ties. He absolutely wrote a check for all of his back ties. Met pastor on Sunday and confessed on Sunday. And Monday showed back up with a check. It was $20-some thousand for his back ties. He'd quit paying his ties. Something happened. He got mad about how the money was being spent or something he got disgruntled over. And he quit tithing and God beat the devil out of him. And God convicted him one Sunday and he showed back up on Monday with a $20-some thousand check to pay all his back ties. Good for him. That's restitution. But that's not just restitution to God. If I sin against a brother, I'm going to make things right with my brother before I can repent to God. I have to repent to God, but I got to make it right with my brother. So the repentance is it's not like blowing a whistle and just kind of shooting off at the mouth. You shed tears in profusion. There's no turning from sin, no turning to God. No restitution to the one that you've injured. This is the reason there's no progress in Christian lives. They make a simple prayer at the altar and think that's enough, but you got to make it right with those you've harmed. If you've gossiped and run your mouth about somebody, then you got to confess to God, but you got to confess to them. These verses, now verses 11 through 15 and 18 through 19 deals with the jealousy offering. And this is the one we're talking about that's confusing. This verses follow tells us that a woman was to drink the bitter water, and if she caused her belly to swell and her thigh to rot, she is to be a curse among the people. If she was not defiled, but clean, then she'd be free. The test would have a tremendous psychological effect upon that person, especially if she is guilty. Why isn't the man subjected? Here it is, Linda. J. Vernon McGee says, why isn't the man subjected to the same test? The Bible does not teach a double standard. In this case, the husband was suspicious of his wife. But could a husband be guilty? Of course. We saw in Leviticus, and we'll see again in Deuteronomy, that if a man or a woman were taken in adultery, both of them were to be stoned to death. So there's no double standard in the Bible. Then why is only the woman to be tested here? Because this is a picture of Christ in the church. There can be no suspicion of Christ, because he's holy, but there can be suspicion of the church. So I can assure you, knowing the church, believe me, the church is always under suspicion. So this is a symbolism. The man is not guilty here. He's bringing his wife in. He thinks she's guilty. And in true typology, Christ is not suspicious of doing anything wrong. But Deuteronomy tells us, and Leviticus has already told us, that if a man's taken in adultery, both of them are stoned. So there's no double standard. But this is just about a jealous husband over his wife. It's not about a jealous wife over her husband. If that happened, I'm sure the same thing would be, something similar would take place. If her husband was found guilty, he'd be stoned. So, this is a jealousy offering. Can God be jealous? Sure he is. God says he's a jealous God. I am the Lord, am a jealous God. And that's what he says in the Word of God over and over again. God is a jealous God. We're not human if we're not jealous, but it's not something that'll cause a relationship to prosper. In this test of jealousy, if the wife was shown to be innocent, she was exonerated. Actually, the law protected her from a jealous husband. This is really, in a sense, a protection for the woman. Now, if she's got a jealous husband, this is a way to protect her. God will prove her innocence and the man a fool. So we're looking at it from, what about the man? This is a protection for the woman if she's innocent. And there's a lot of men that are married to jealous husbands that are always making accusations against them. Well, I know you other men look at you because you're so pretty and I'm not that handsome. And I know you probably could have any man you want, and probably some men's already made a... There's jealous husbands. So this was a protection for an innocent woman. And he's over and over again said, I know you've been unfaithful. I just know it in my heart. Well, then shut him up. Take me to the priest. Put a test. Because she knows God's going to be faithful to her if she's innocent. God's not going to let an innocent woman suffer. God's not going to let an innocent woman rot and swell up. Because God made this test to prove right or wrong. So if she's innocent, this is going to prove her jealous husband to be a fool. So this really is a law of protection if you look at it half glass being half full instead of half empty. Does that make sense? So this reveals, again, the Word of God is very clear on the matter of fidelity in marriage. This is just emphasis that men and women need to be faithful in their marriage. And not, you can't survive if all you do is have an attitude of jealousy. And you can't survive if your marriage is always built on unfaithfulness. Now that's chapter 4 and 5. We covered it quickly. But as I said last Friday, these first 5 or 6 chapters are going to be like that. Because when we get to chapter 7, I'm probably not even going to read the whole chapter. It's 89 verses. But all it does is tell the same thing. So-and-so brought an offering, and this was his offering. So-and-so brought an offering. You say, I don't believe that. Okay, well, look. Just go ahead and look. Chapter 7, I'll show you. This is how it goes for 89 verses. 89 verses. It goes through the list. And the first one, he offered that offering. The day was Nashon, the son of Abimadad, the tribe of Judah. His offering was one silver charger, and it goes through it. One spoon of 10 shekels, one young bullet. And then you get down to verse 18, on the second day, Nathaniel, the son of Zuar, prince of Issachar, he brought for an offering one silver charger. Same thing. A different man bringing the same offerings. That's verse 19. In verse 24, on the third day, Eliab, the son of Helon, prince of the children of Zebulun, did offer one silver charger. He brings the same thing. Every few verses are the same. On the fourth day, every day a man brought an offering. He brought the same offering, and all God does is just name the man. Go over that. It's going to be a long, monotonous chapter. And I'm probably not going to read the whole verses. I'm just going to talk about several of them and show you what it's for and why that's important. 89 verses of the same thing repeated, but there's a principle God's trying to produce. So, Numbers starts out real quick. A lot of stuff we're covering in just a couple hours, but it's going to slow down because we're going to get to the places where things are going to get hot, and it's going to become a soap opera, and we're going to see God and Moses and all the people banging heads, and there's going to be a whole lot of things to talk about, especially when we get to the part about murmuring and complaining. I'll probably dwell on it for about 2 weeks because it fits us really well in the New Testament church. Amen. Well, I love you all. It's 10 after 10. I went too long. Thank you so much. Good Monday to everybody. Hope you have a great day. Praying for you, Lord willing. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And remember, all you Zoom class people, I'll send out a notice this afternoon. Last week's address is the same link today. You can use the same link from last week, 6 o'clock, Zoom class on depression. Be in your place. We'll cover a couple chapters tonight. Can't wait to see y'all. Love you. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for praying. Have a good day.